So today, thanks for tuning in because we're talking about the original Navy SEALs that have ever been recorded.
These are some of the toughest guys, and they're just called mighty men.
That's
Not
right.
only that, but we're going to find the 3 top guys. They're like the 3 Musketeers. So it's going to be pretty cool. That's what we're talking about on HC Daily.
You're listening to another episode of HC Daily, a daily devotional podcast that you can listen to at home or on the go. We believe that you can grow as much as you want to grow spiritually, and this podcast can be a part of your daily growth plan. So, whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify or your favorite podcast app, we're glad you're here. Now, let's join our hosts, Jeff Forrester and Chris Zarbaugh, in the studio.
So, Jeff.
Yes.
A couple podcasts ago, I asked you the question about musicals.
Yeah.
And if people are listening, they probably remember that if they're listening sequentially.
Right.
But today I'm going to ask you a similar yet totally different question.
Okay.
And that is, I'm a pretty massive Disney fan as well.
Okay.
So what is your favorite Disney animated, because there's a whole lot of Disney.
Favorite animated Disney?
Animated Disney film.
It has to be a Disney film, not a Disney-owned film? Like, doesn't Disney own Pixar?
Which is why I said animated. I don't mean, come on, there's another word for that.
I don't know. It's your question, dude.
Animated means cartoony.
Oh, it has to be a cartoon.
Yeah.
Okay. My favorite Disney cartoon. Man, I don't know. What was the one where the mice were explorers?
Oh, The Rescuers.
The Rescuers, yes.
Part 1 and Part 2.
I don't know.
Part 1 was Zsa Zsa Gabor.
Uh-huh.
And
that's the one I'm thinking of.
And Part 2 was the one where it was the big eagle.
Yeah. No, I like the albatross.
Yes, the albatross.
Yeah. Okay, both. I like those two.
Okay.
I loved those when I was kids.
Yeah. The Rescuers is a good one. I like them.
Yeah.
And by the
You
way,
approve?
those are so old that most of our listeners, I guess,
they wouldn't even know what they are. Yeah. Okay, you want a modern one then? The
No,
other day you made a big deal about Tangled.
Yes.
Yeah, you love Tangled.
Love it. It's my favorite.
So I kind of fancy myself a little bit like Gaston in Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, yes.
There's no who's how they're singing that song about nobody can fight like Gaston or shoot like Gaston, run or jump like Gaston,
or good looking or the best.
Yeah,
the
best.
They say
it's this whole self-assurance thing.
Yeah, he looks and he's like, I know.
Yeah,
That's
Beauty and the
great.
Beast is the best.
It really is.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That's cool.
Yep.
So
is Zac Efron on that one?
Man, you're just the worst.
That's been a theme all week long. If you've missed it,
Hey, I only said
that you have a crush on Zac Efron. That's what I
did
heard.
not say that at all.
Oh, okay.
I just said he's adorable.
Yeah.
In High School Musical 1.
I don't think I've ever said those words. So yeah,
I'm totally kidding.
That's so funny.
No.
So hey, let me now that you've ruined your ministry, the death of your ministry, that reminds me of the death of King Saul. You haven't ruined your ministry. It's just you've lost all respect. Everybody,
Wow.
yeah, no longer respect.
You just keep going, don't you?
Yes. So at this point, King Saul has died.
Yes.
Just like Samuel and the witch had said. The witch at Endor had said that you're going to die. He does die.
Yeah.
So does his sons. They die. And then in chapter 11 of First Chronicles, so that happens in chapter 10. In chapter 11 of First Chronicles, David becomes king of all of Israel. So he had been recognized by the tribe of Judah as the king of Israel, of Judah, but now he becomes a king of all Israel. Here's what it says. Let me just read it for you. It says in chapter 11 of First Chronicles, "Then all Israel gathered before David at Hebron and told him, 'We are your own flesh and blood. In the past, even when Saul was king, you were the one who really led the forces of Israel. And the Lord your God told you, you will be the shepherd of my people Israel. You will be the leader of my people Israel.' So there at Hebron, David made a covenant before the Lord with all of the elders of Israel, and they anointed him king of Israel, just as the Lord had promised through Samuel. Then David and all Israel went to Jerusalem, or Jebus, which, as it used to be called, where the Jebusites, the original inhabitants of the land, were living. The people of Jebus taunted David, saying, 'You'll never get in here.' But David captured the fortress of Zion, which is now called the City of David. David had said to his troops, 'Whoever is first to attack the Jebusites will become the commander of my armies.' And Joab, the son of David's sister Zeruiah, was first to attack, so he became the commander of David's armies. David made the fortress his home, and that is why it's called the City of David. He extended the city from the supporting terraces to the surrounding area, while Joab rebuilt the rest of Jerusalem. And David became more and more powerful because the Lord of heaven's armies was with him. And then here's where it really gets cool. It says, these are the leaders of David's mighty warriors. Together with all Israel, they decided to make David their king, just as the Lord had promised concerning Israel. Here's the record of David's mightiest warriors. The first was Jashobeam the Hachmonite, who was leader of the three, the mightiest warriors among David's men. He once used his spear to kill 300 enemy warriors in a single battle. Next in rank among the three was Eleazar, son of Dodai, a descendant of Ahoah. He was with David in the battle against the Philistines at Pas-dammim. The battle took place in a field of barley, and the Israelite army fled. But Eleazar and David held their ground in the middle of the field and beat back the Philistines. So the Lord saved them by giving them a great victory. Once, when David was at the rock near the cave of Adullam, the Philistine army was camped in the valley of Rephaim. The three, who were among the 30, an elite group among David's fighting men, went down to meet him there. David was staying in the stronghold at the time, and a Philistine detachment had occupied the town of Bethlehem. David remarked longingly to his men, "Oh, how I would love some of that good water from the well by the gate in Bethlehem." So the three broke through the Philistines' line, drew some water from the well by the gate in Bethlehem, and brought it back to David. But David refused to drink it. Instead, he poured it out as an offering to the Lord. "God forbid that I should drink this," he exclaimed. "This water is as precious as the blood of these men who risked their lives to bring it to me." So David did not drink it. These are the examples, the exploits of the three. Abishai, the brother of Joab, was the leader of the 30. He once used his spear to kill 300 enemy warriors in a single battle. It was by such feats that he became as famous as the three. Abishai was the most famous of the 30 and was their commander, though he's not one of the three. There was also Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, a valiant warrior from Kabzeel. He did many heroic deeds, which included killing 2 champions of Moab. Another time, on a snowy day, he chased a lion down into a pit and killed it. Once, armed only with a club, he killed an Egyptian warrior who was 7.5 feet tall, whose spear was as thick as a weaver's beam. Benaiah wrenched a spear from the Egyptian's hand and killed him with it. Deeds like these made Benaiah as famous as the 3 mightiest warriors. He was more honored than the other members of the 30, though he is not one of the 3, and David made him captain of his bodyguard. And then it goes on and it lists the other 30 guys. So there's like 37 tough guys all together here. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's extremely cool. And so it lists David's mighty men after David becomes king of Israel. And so if we're going to look at the Discovery Bible Method, the first thing it says is what jumps out at you. Well, I mean, even before we get to the story of the water, the thing that has to jump out is jumping into a pit with a snowy pit with a lion and killing it.
Yeah.
Or facing back 300 people with a spear.
Yeah.
Or killing somebody, and at the end of the battle, your hand freezes to a sword.
Yeah, you can't let go of the sword.
I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
These guys were stuff of legends.
Yeah, the other guy, he takes a 7.5-foot fighter's spear away from him and kills him with his own spear, right?
Yeah.
These guys are tough guys. So one thing that's really surprising, I think the thing that jumps out the most through all these stories is these are really aggressive, strong, violent men. But they were men of the times. They were the necessary guys for that day, right? And they were up for the fight. I mean, these were the elite of the elite of the elite fighters. And it's one of the reasons why David was such a massive threat to Saul. That's why Saul viewed it, is that the elite fighters followed David. I mean, after all, he'd only killed a 9.5-foot giant. So there's that. So they all came to him for that. And then even the Philistines and the rest of the surrounding enemies were terrified of David. And it wasn't just David. It was the kind of men that were attracted to follow and be a part of David's mission.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question, and this is a 2-part question.
Yeah.
Here's the first question, and that is, how many giant killers were in Saul's army?
Just David. David and what was it, Abishai?
Well, actually, the answer is actually 0. Because David currently wasn't in Saul's army.
Oh, not in this army. Yeah.
No, even when he killed Goliath, he wasn't in the army.
Oh, okay.
He was actually at the time running cheese to the front lines, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the answer technically is, everybody says
0.
1, though. Everybody says David. Okay, so here's another question. How many giant killers were in David's army? Do you know the answer to this?
2.
No, it actually lists later on 6.
6 giant
There were
killers.
6 giant killers.
Oh, wow.
And so the print, I heard this a long time ago,
Okay.
so I'm just kind of pulling it from,
Yeah.
from what I heard. And that is, and I've actually spoke on it several times, and that is that like attracts like,
Yes.
right?
I was going there. That's what I was going to
Yes,
say too.
that's what brought me to
Yeah,
that thought. Is that you're going to attract the people. So if you're a person who is full of integrity, you know, you're going to search for an organization that is led by somebody with full integrity.
Right.
And so that's what it does. Like attracts like. Let me tell you a real quick story, if you don't mind. And that is, my brother was a youth pastor along with me. We both kind of went into the ministry right after the other. He's just 1 year older than me. And he spent years and years as a pastor before he ran into some, you know, difficulties, and he still serves in ministry and things.
Yeah.
But he's no longer full-time vocational pastor. But for years he was. Anyway, he's sort of a, so if you wonder why I know about superheroes,
Yes.
it's because of my older brother, Jimmy. He's the guy with the comic books,
Okay.
right? He was the guy with all this. So he's sort of like, he calls himself like a nerd, right? And so here's what happens. He's working at this huge church. You ever hear of Prestonwood?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So massive church.
Wow.
10,000 people, right?
Yeah.
He was the head video guy there for years. We also served in the youth department. So this youth department has 300-400 kids. And every time that they would have an event, what Jimmy noticed that it was always led by athletes. It's like, we're going to do like, mud football, you know, and all these kind of things. And what Jimmy thought is, geez, where's an event for the other kids like me? So he said, can I host an event for people like me? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, I was a youth pastor. I know how to do it. And they're like, yeah, sure. Give it a run. So he stands up in front of everybody and he goes, hey, everybody. He goes, so the 7th Star Wars, like, you know, I guess would be like episode number 5, 6, 7, like episode 8 or something like this, whatever it was. He's like, episode 8 is coming out. He's like, so here's what I want to do, because I want to host an all Star Wars night where we're going to watch these X amount of movies, and then we're going to go to the theater, and then we're going to watch the other one. Because we're going to stay up all night, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to do these remote control cars, you know. And all of a sudden, he said on the sign up sheet, he said everybody rushed to the back of the table, and all of them had like pocket holders, you know, with pencils in them, you know, all these, you know, kids that, you know, just were like,
protractors.
Star Wars, you know.
T5 calculators.
I've really got this big lightsaber collection at home, you know? And so all these kids ran to the back, and he's like, dude, he goes, everybody that was like me said, thank you for running this kind of event. And I just thought to myself, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Because, you know, they all followed my brother.
Yeah.
And like attracts like, and that's just what's going to happen. And so David attracts people who are giant killers because they've seen him kill the giant.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. Well, birds of a feather flock together.
Yep.
I was talking to a young woman, late 20s, several months ago, and she was complaining about she just can't seem to find a good man, a good guy, right? So she desires to be married, all that kind of stuff. And I said, well, where are you looking? And she started naming all the bars and stuff she's hanging out.
Right.
Well, okay, guess what? You're searching in the wrong places. That's your problem, right? Birds of a feather flock together. So you wonder why, you know, you can't find the right friends, whatever. But on the other side of it, if you know, my dad used to say, you either are right now or soon shall be, just like the crowd you run with. Mm-hmm. So there's two sides of that. One, the people I'm around are the people I'm going to be like. But there's also who you're running with. So if you want to be a great person, go run with people that are striving to be great.
Right.
So choose who you run with. Mm-hmm. Go run with the right people. Find a way to get around the people who are going in the direction you're trying to go. And then there's something special about being on a team that's succeeding. I can remember when I was in high school, I played a lot of baseball, and I played on a team that had a really good coach and had a couple of good players. And I would say, so that season we wound up going undefeated. We never lost a game. We won every tournament. We did everything. It was just that dream year. I was like 15 or 16 years old. We won every game. And I'll tell you, all of us, our batting averages, the best at batting averages we probably ever had in our career. We were turning more double plays I played shortstop. We played more double plays than we'd ever turn. We were making all these incredible plays. We all played far above our maybe our natural skill ability, because the guys around us were playing at that level, right? And so you tend to bump each other up. When you get on a good team, you encourage each other. So it's not just one superstar. David's the superstar.
Right.
But man, you got some dude. It doesn't even say why he went down into a pit on a snowy day to kill a lion.
Right,
It was
right.
there and it's snowy.
Yeah.
What else are we going to do, right?
Yeah.
So
Whatever the circumstances were, he became famous for it.
yeah, exactly. There's just these guys were all at a whole other level, and there's something special about that. So if you don't like the level you're at, go run with some different people. Find a new group of people.
Yeah.
You're being pulled down. If they're not pushing you up to play above your skill level, then you're being pulled down to theirs. That's the thing. So go find another group to run with. And so these guys left, most of them left Saul's armies and went and joined David because David was heading the direction they wanted to be, and he was the kind of leader they could follow.
So another principle as we look at the questions, and that is, what does it say about God? What does it say about people? I would say, let me skip to the people part for a minute. It reminds us that it's important to be around community. So I think there's a cross-reference here, but, Jesus chose 12, and among the 12, he had the 3, right? He had Peter, James, and John.
Yeah.
And you could argue and say he had the 1, right? So Peter. So it is modeled that, you have a community of people, and then you have your really close, tight friends. Yeah. And here it is modeled by David thousands of years before, where what does he do? He's Saul didn't do this, at least it's not recorded.
Right.
Where David decides to surround himself with 30 mighty men because, after all, this is the mission that God has called him to defend Israel, to defend against the enemy, the wickedness of sin, and those around who mock God. So he surrounds himself with people that are on the mission, God's mission with him. And then he has the 3.
Right.
And the 3 are his close confidants. And so the model of this is just incredible. I've got 30 men, and then I've got my 3. And so I guess you can just directly apply that and just say, what about you? Who do you have in your life that you, just to your point, run with, right?
Yeah.
Both to, encourage us spiritually and everything else, emotionally, and, being in health and things like that. But then also, you should have 1 or 2 or 3 that should be your closest, that just encourage you like no other and lift you up.
You need some mighty men in your life.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Or women. Women need women, men need men.
Absolutely. Right. I would say you don't find David. David went down and fought Goliath on his own. But the rest of David's career, David has all these incredible mighty men around him, right? And David's victory wasn't because David was a dominant warrior all by himself. God sent him a few hundred tough guys. He sent him, these 30 really tough guys, these elite special forces guys. But there's 600 most of the time when he's running around. He finally gets up to 1,000, whatever. Now that he becomes king, thousands come. You turn the page, it talks about thousands and thousands coming from all the other kingdoms now, or all the other tribes, because they're all supporting David. But up until this point, David had a small army of elite leaders, and God sent the very best to fulfill the mission that David had on his life and the call he had on his life, because Saul had the resources of the entire kingdom at his disposal.
Right. That's right.
And God said, okay, you know what? You might not feel like you have all the resources the king has. I'm going to send you everything you need. And let me see, you're going to need a guy who can kill a giant with his own spear, and you're going to need a guy who hunts lions on snowy days for fun, and Eliezer, who's going to stand back to back with you, and you guys are going to fight off hundreds of Philistines.
Which is amazing.
Right.
And by the way, David was in that equation.
Yeah.
And then let's finally get to, because we have a few minutes left, to talk about this idea that here's David. He looks down and he sees there's a well in Bethlehem.
This is one of the greatest stories in the Bible.
It really is. And he says, I grew up in Bethlehem. This is David's hometown. So he says, I long for a drink. You know what he's really saying? He's like, I know that well.
Yeah.
And I remember the taste of that well.
Yeah.
And it's the well of my youth.
Yeah.
And I'm thirsty and I'm dying for a drink. And so I think I told you this before, but when I was in Israel in 2009, I had a choice. In fact, the whole bus had a choice. There was 17 of us. And they said, okay, we have a choice. We can go see the field of Armageddon, literally, like the actual field.
Right.
Or we can go to the wells at Bethlehem. Well, nobody in the bus was interested in the wells at Bethlehem. And I was the pastor in the group, and I said, I would love to see the wells. I love this story. I want to see the wells in Bethlehem. Well, there's only one well near the gates of Bethlehem. It's shut down. It's no longer operable. You can't drink from it. But it's there, and it's the only one. So this is it. Bethlehem was quite small back then.
Right, yes.
Old Bethlehem.
Right.
And so this was the well. And I said, I'd like to go see it. So the whole bus conceded for me. And we all went to it. And I remember literally just like getting emotional. And I thought to myself, this is so emotional because the men weren't asked to go down, right? David just said, I want a drink.
Yeah.
So they took it upon themselves because they loved him so much and fought everybody and brought back a drink. Now, here's what I picture. I picture not a drink with a Starbucks lid that locks.
Right.
We're talking like a cup or a bucket.
Yeah, bucket.
And you're fighting with swords and you're trying not to spill the drink. You know, it says they fought. They didn't just sneak. They fought.
They fought their way down through the lines and back out.
Yes, to get him a drink.
Yes.
And then he's so honored that he pours it out and says, I want this so bad, but the fact that you guys risked your lives for me means more to me. So I'm pouring this out as a drink offering to the Lord because it's worth more.
Only God deserves that kind of loyalty.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So he pours it out because he's so thankful. He's
Yes.
so thankful that God has surrounded him with these men who have done this thing.
Right.
And that's his gratitude is way more important than the drink.
So that pour out offering seems odd to us. It seems almost like he's not thankful. But in their day, they had an offering specifically called the pour out offering, offering, where they would take something very valuable to them and they would pour it out to the Lord. Mm-hmm. And it was an extreme form of sacrifice. So his men wouldn't have taken it as an insult. It seems insulting to us. I risk my life and you won't drink my water.
Come on, man.
Right. But his men would have taken it that was an even greater honor, right, than him doing that. Yeah, the idea, especially when there's the parallels between David and the son of David, right? Son of David being Jesus, David being the king, and Jesus being the King of Kings. So many Christians wait around for the commands of the king. Is this legal or illegal? Can I do this or is it a sin? How close to the edge can I get? We had this conversation just recently with a young leader, right? About how close to sin can I get? These guys, they're not asking, did the king say I have to do it? Instead, they're asking, what's the heart of the king?
Yeah.
Right? And we will risk everything for his heart. What does he want? That's what I want to give him.
Yeah.
Not what's he commanding. This didn't come as a command. Hey, men, and he could have done it. Go get me a drink.
Sure.
Right? All they knew is the desire of the king, and they ran down and risked everything for him. What if instead of us living our life just waiting for Jesus to tell us what to do, what if we just discovered his heart, which is to love God and love people and keep ourselves unspotted from the world? What if we just decided we're all in, we're going to pursue the intent of his heart, the desire of his heart to please the King of Kings like these? Then I think Jesus would see us as some of his mighty men if we live that kind of life.
Yeah, and I think that's a great last word. And so, this is one of the greatest stories. It's one of my favorites in the entire Bible.
Mine too.
Yeah, so awesome. So join us next time as we continue our talk about King David.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this podcast, please help us spread the word by liking this episode and sharing it on your social media platforms. Be sure to leave a comment and review, and don't forget to give us 5 stars. When you do, you help us reach even more people who need a daily devotional like HC Daily. If you'd like to hear more from Chris and Jeff, they're both teaching pastors at Heritage Church, located in Southeast Michigan. You can get more of their messages by clicking on the Messages tab at heritagechurch.com. Be sure to join us again soon for another episode of HC Daily.